Commissioner Dobb has requested an excuse. Commissioner Clark Coleman. Commissioner Kenizic. Chair Basham.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
Next item.
B, Chair's remarks.
I have none. Next item.
C, approve the May 24, 2023 meeting minutes.
Can I get a motion? Can I get support? Carmen? Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Motion carried.
Next item.
D, unfinished business. Item 1, forwarding a letter from Plant and Moran PLLC, the county's independent external auditor, providing a required communication to the Commission, Committee on Audit, and the county executive on the results of its audit of the county September 30, 2022 financial statements and related annual comprehensive financial report.
I'd like to, at this time, introduce Ms. Marcy Cora, the Auditor General, her staff, and her guest. Ms. Cora, please proceed.
Marcy Cora, Auditor General. And if we could take the unfinished business and the one new item at the same time.
Well, yes.
And I'll have Mindy introduce herself, and we'll have guests.
Mindy Hayner, Audit Manager.
Sorry. Good morning, Commissioners. Yogesh Kisani, Deputy CFO, Management Budget.
Welcome.
Good morning, Michael Bridges, Assistant Director of Financial Reporting with Management and Budget.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Please proceed, Ms. Cora.
We also have additional guests. We're just waiting for, I see they have arrived, the Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Deputy Financial Officer, if they could join us at the table. And then what we're doing as we go through the findings, we'll be rotating the audits out because we have quite a few in attendance for the meeting. So
Okay.
these are the primary, sir.
Could you introduce your guests, introduce themselves?
Okay, good morning, John Wallace, CFO.
Morning.
Rob Whittigan, Chief Deputy CFO.
Welcome. Good morning, Commissioner Church. Please proceed.
What you have before you, this is a continuation of the results from the fiscal year September 30th, 22 annual comprehensive financial report. What we're going to do, as we said at the last meeting, we're going to go through each of the findings, and the schedule that I provided you is broken down by areas for the auditees. So I'll go through the conditions and recommendations, and we'll be able to hear the corrective action that the auditees plan on taking. I just wanted to start out by saying, we have 14 findings, but I think we've seen significant improvement in our findings. Even the external auditors mentioned this at the last meeting. I want to say too, that as we get into item 1 and 2, these are findings that probably will be around for a while. They've been a repeat for a while, and they probably will be repeat for a while. The external auditors mentioned at the last meeting too, that these are findings they find pretty much similar on most audits that they do. So this is not just to the county, it's probably because of revenue recognition policies and other things throughout the areas. These probably will be here for a while. We'll start with the first one. This is 2022-01. It was a material weakness. The condition was that the county general ledger and underlying financial records were not reconciled and closed in a timely manner. There were numerous adjustments that should have been identified by management, which were instead identified during the audit of the county and component units. And the recommendation was that the county should work with all departments to ensure that each has adequate resources to fully and accurately reconcile and record activity throughout the year and identify and record year-end entries prior to the start of the audit. An independent review of reconciliation trial balances prior to the start of the audit would assist in identifying and correcting potential errors. This is primary management and budget is the overall umbrella for these, but it does go across component units and other departments and elected officials.
And would a department like to say anything in response?
Yes, again, to the chair, I'm going to cover findings 1 and 2, I think, Marcy, those are the same
Yeah. Mhm.
findings. Again, like as Auditor General has mentioned, in larger entities like us, public sector, sort of voluminous transactions are there. And some of our policy is, like we say, revenue recognition, 90 days for the grants. By the time we get information, it comes in a January or so forth. That is the major reason. And other major reasons are lately, GASB, Governmental Accounting Standard Board, started so many pronouncements. And by the time when we go through the pronouncement, that requires a lot of adjustments, and we have to work literally closely with the auditors. So by the time you're working back and forth, so it does take time. So there's some lot of adjustments what auditors are looking to make it at the end of September. So by the time it takes a time to us. So this is what this finding is. There's a lot of adjustments that we have to make it in general ledger.
We appreciate your efforts, Ms. Cora.
If I could add to that too, we also need to realize that we're working with an antiquated system. So hopefully in the future, whenever we get the ERP system, I'm hoping it would help some of our processes, but that also, I believe, contributes to it along with the staffing issues.
Appreciate
Right.
it.
Thanks, Marcy.
Any comments or questions from commissioners? Okay, please proceed.
As Joey says, that was covering 1 and 2, so we'll just move on to 3.
Okay. All right.
3 is instances where the county was not in compliance with laws and regulations. There's outstanding checks related to both road construction performance bonds and agency fund liabilities that are considered abandoned and not escheated to the state. Expenditures exceeded budget amounts in certain expenditure groups within the general fund, roads fund, COVID-19 fund, and multiple non-major governmental funds. Original budget and amended budgets for the victim witness fund, and original budget for the law enforcement fund would have resulted in a projected fund deficit as presented in other supplemental information, and no budget was. And our recommendation is the county implement a process that identifies specific individuals for identifying and monitoring applicable compliance requirements throughout the year. In addition, the county should file a voluntary disclosure agreement when submitting achievement to the state.
And go ahead.
So, Mark, I'll go bullet by bullet. Since outstanding checks, that's something we are still working with the Corp Council. We have a achievement policy that needs to be updated. And again, we have worked in a prior year, but there's a lot of tweaking needs to be there. And again, we need the resources to go through the last few years of outstanding checks, because it does include payroll checks, payable checks, and each and every check works a different way policy-wise. So we just needed some resources to work with. Step number 1 is we just need to finalize the policy with Corp Council about achievement. Once we do that, and when we employ resources, we should be able to get that done. I do not believe we may have a repeat finding next year, but hopefully following year, we should be able to mitigate this finding.
Thank you. Question or comments from Commissioner Kling?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is a voluntary disclosure agreement?
I'm sorry, where is that?
The
Go ahead.
voluntary disclosure agreement when submitting the achievement to the state's document that the state's going to require when they escheat the money.
It's the application.
And this is a repeat back to 2018. Does that mean we haven't been filing those? It's a required document, right?
County has not escheated to the state for probably prior to 2018. It's been a long time since the county's done any escheatment to the state. The county needs to develop the policy and then determine what amounts do need to be escheated to the state. Part of this goes to the road construction funds. I know our office did an engagement some time ago, and part of what Corporation Council, I believe, is looking at, and Yogesh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we want to make sure the funds we're escheating to the state are funds that actually should be escheated to the state and not funds that can be captured as revenue to the county. So I know that was one thing Corp Council was working at, and that may have helped delay the escheatment policy.
Right.
Okay, so we haven't escheated anything back to the state for 5-6 years,
Probably longer than that.
or filing this. So where is that money if we're not cheating it back to the state?
So that money is sitting in our liability account. So again, it is as a liability. So it's not sitting in revenue or any other.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. I hate to be like this, but this thing here, I hear it better than I can hear the folks that are trying to speak here. Don't you agree, Irma? That's what I want to know.
Oh, that's to keep the equipment cool.
So you gotta have it on? Is that what you're saying? Well, this is our first meeting in a small room like this, and for me, it's very difficult to hear on this ear and not hear what's going on in that ear. And so, anyway, it's our eerie feeling. I'm glad we're on Lake Erie. Please proceed.
Yeah, oh, you always go to the second bullet.
So again, I will highlight the second bullet, COVID-19 fund. COVID-19 fund, always there's a federal government was changing probably a policy every other month, what you can do, you cannot do. So obviously we were trying to get in a better advantage of the funding, what we had, whether to use sheriff's payroll or not, to make sure that we don't need to send money back to the Fed. So obviously those was kind of policy changes. So we had to make a lot of other adjustments in that one. But other than roads funds and multiple non-major funds, I think we were able to take care of this year. So we should not be repeating those other stuff.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Third bullet, victim witness fund. So this is a good news about, this is the first year we did not file, or we were not required to file deficit elimination plan with the state. This is the first time in my 7 or 8 years here that we didn't file. We were not required to file. So victim witness fund, yes, it did not go in an actual, it did not go in a deficit, but somehow when we did a budget, original budget, was in deficit. So that's what that finding is. And I did argue with the auditor as far as this one, that it should not have been, but he said, you cannot have by state law, you cannot have a special revenue fund budget in deficit. So,
Okay.
yeah. But we definitely are going to correct it, and it's going to be corrected for 2023 and future years.
Thank you.
The last bullet, it's a building authority. So just to clarify, in building authority, there's a board for a building authority. So they do approve a debt service budget, because we still have a 2 bond outstanding in Wayne County Building Authority. Those are Inkster and Hamtramck revenue bonds. So we do budget for those debt service fund. What they are asking is in our operational budget. Ideally speaking, there's not much activity in building authority after 2010 jail probably was completed, because the new CJC is part of a general fund. So there's not much expenses. We can do the budget, so to speak. So again, we'll take care of this year. But other than that, it's not, I would say we don't do that budget.
Okay. Ms. Cora.
Went on to, we're going to go on per the schedule to finding number 7. The county did not have procedures in place to ensure that balances within the fiduciary funds were properly reconciled at year end, and the necessary activities were appropriately moved to the general fund. With our recommendation, with Plan Moran's recommendation being the county should develop a process to ensure that balances within the fiduciary funds are reconciled timely and accurately. The year-end process for adjusting fiduciary activities and moving certain items to the general fund should be simplified with a focus on achieving the proper end results.
So again, this is mainly, and again, yes, due to the staffing and some other, other resources that we are not reconciling, or I would say we are trying to reconcile after all the transactions completed around like in September. But this major cause of this one was GSB 84, because it's changed the whole landscape of how you are recording transaction fiduciary versus special revenue fund or general fund. And that's why sometimes we needed a history from our other department or elected offices. Okay, you have sitting something in liability account balances. What's the history? And I think we were probably taking a time to know. Sometimes history was not clear even what was those money is. And we needed those detail, and I think it's taken us 2 years. We implemented in 2021, and we're still going through some of the issues in 2022. Hopefully, we would not have much more issue in this particular fiscal year, GSB 84, but that's the major issue of that GSB 84 of fiduciary funds. I just want to show Michael, do you want to add in there? Because Michael, my deputy, he has worked closely with GSB 84, so.
No, you're right on point, Yogesh. This was our second year implementing GASB 84 for accounting for fiduciary activities. And like Yogesh said, historically, those funds were accounted in a set of funds. And when Plant came out to actually ask us to provide detail, because it goes back to so many years, it was quite difficult to do so. But they were able to still give us a clean opinion. But one of the things that we still need to do is really seek to get support. And that's what we're working through right now.
Great.
Thank you, Michael.
Commissioner Kling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Auditor General, what are fiduciary funds?
Funds that were holding for someone else. They're not the county's funds.
An example?
Maybe we should give those.
Example, one of the achievement fund could be fiduciary, part of the tax fund. It's a fiduciary because when we are collecting tax, and I'm sure treasurer's representative is here, but most of the property taxes, because we remit taxes to a school district, all other communities. So those are, it's our fiduciary duties that we are collecting on somebody's behalf.
Okay. It's probably a lot of money, especially if it's, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And are you having difficulty getting the proper financial information out of the treasurer's office? Where do those tax funds lie? Waiting to be dispersed? Do they lie in the treasurer's budget or in the executive's budget? Where do they lie?
No, so it's a 703 fund. This is a 700 cities is a fiduciary fund. So normally treasurers, when they collect it, and I will let them speak in detail, but normally they try to disperse to the communities every 14 days or whatever the time limit, prescribed by a statute. So they do that. So that's in the 703 is sitting, that's a fiduciary fund.
Okay. And MMB has a person at the treasurer's office? Or does the treasurer
No,
maintain these records and then give them to you?
treasurer maintains that record, and then when they reconcile, and we will get those files, transactions that will get into an MNB's general ledger.
I don't want to get in front, Ms. Cora, and then we have somebody like to
Right,
respond.
just to say, if she could join, Ms. Janvier could join us at the table, we have representatives from the treasurer's office.
Okay.
And they actually, the next two findings are related to them also.
Good afternoon.
All right,
Or morning,
just
I guess it's still-
hit your button and
Whatever it
have a
is.
seat and make yourself at home.
Morning.
Let the green light come on and then don't touch it after that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Janvier Adams, Chief Deputy Treasurer, and I have with me two administrators from our office. Introduce yourself.
I'm Melissa Evans. I'm the tax administrator.
Morning.
I am Soraya Williams Barber, the Supervisor of Cash Management Technology.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, was the question that we had, the treasurer's office, Commissioner Kling?
Well, given the finding that fiduciary funds are not properly reconciled. So I was kind of poking to see, is that the reconciliation take place at the treasurer's office, or does that take place in this building with MMB?
Well, I think this finding relates to M&B's reconciliation. So it's the reconciliation to the general ledger as opposed to our separate reconciliations that we prepare, which is also going to be discussed today. But
So,
this one is specific to M&B and the general ledger.
so I guess my question for MMB then is, you're getting the information you need out of the treasurer's office.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We do get information, yes. So again, timeliness sometimes is a key, but we do get information once they reconcile their daily files for cash as well as their tax administration cycles.
Does this mean we're kind of late sometimes getting money to the local communities and to the?
We're not necessarily late. We have an issue with our accounts payable cycle. And we've identified that, and we're trying to make sure that we shorten that so that they are getting in more timely, the distributions. But it's never been an issue for our office with the timing of the distributions.
Okay. Am I hearing staffing at MMB? Is this what I'm hearing in the background? You got enough people to get this done,
So again,
along
we-
with all the other findings?
Right, yeah. So the fiduciary fund is, we was just giving an example of 703, but there are a lot of other fiduciary funds too.
Okay.
So other than this, so it's not just, we were just giving an example of GSB 84 and how it's impacted treasurer's office. But overall, there are a lot of other fiduciary funds that we need information from prosecutor office, we need information from sheriff's office, we need information from clerk's office, because they have a lot of other or liabilities sitting there. We need to know whether it's a liability or it's a revenue even. So that's what, yeah, staffing issue, yes, number one. Number two, it's not easy to obtain those historical information from other offices.
Because we're also probably talking about the
Right.
clerk and
Yes,
the register of deeds
Yes.
and,
that's correct.
Sheriffs.
yeah. You know, that is one of the difficulties in county government, is having these 5 independently elected with their own shops that need to feed all information back into one location, timely, whatever. So I'm sensing that as part of for you guys to try to wrestle this to the ground every year.
Right, and their staffing change on their side too. Some of the records were maintained in Excel spreadsheet even, so we don't have in our ledger, so.
All right, appreciate the answers. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed, Ms. Cora.
We're moving on to finding 4 and 8. These are primarily management, budget, and the treasurer's office combined. The first one, number 4, is there was significant improvements have been made over the past several years, and the county does have adequate procedures in place. However, they lack the operational effectiveness to ensure all bank accounts are fully reconciled to the general ledger, that the reconciling items could be supported, and their reconciliations were performed and reviewed timely. The recommendation, the county should develop a bank reconciliation process involving both management, budget, and the treasurer's office to ensure bank recs are prepared and reviewed timely.
Somebody from MMB want to respond or?
Yes,
Yes, I would like to say that since the completion of the audit, we have had standing meetings, essentially that I've been hosting with Ms. Adams and her team here, Soraya, as well as Melissa and our team. And we talked at length about what we need to do to get the bank reconciliations done timely. As of now, as is stated here in the findings, the bank reconciliation process is a 2-step process. The treasurer's office takes care of reconciling on their end what's in the bank account to their cash ledger. And then on a monthly basis, we take those reports for M&B, we take those reports and then we reconcile that to the county's ledger. Right now, we've been able to reconcile for this current fiscal year for all of the main accounts all the way through March. We're starting to now get ready to work on April. When Plant came out last year to do the audit, in their preliminary planning, they took note that at that time, we actually was about 60 days, teetering on maybe 90 days of having the main bank reconciliation done. Notwithstanding, as they stated, we've made some tremendous progress with cleaning up a lot of the long time reconciling items, but their point was that we should do a better job in shortening that cycle. So right now we're about 45 days off as we go month to month. So it's our belief that we will have this item hopefully off the list. It won't be a finding as we continue to streamline the process.
Thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Cora.
Going on to number 8, the county did not have procedure in place to ensure that all bank accounts are fully reconciled to the general ledger, and the reconciled items could be supported in the reconciles or perform review time. This is similar to number 4. The county should develop a bank reconciliation process to ensure they're prepared and reviewed timely. So this is similar.
Yeah, this is similar, but it's a different twist. We do have on the, well, there's a number of accounts that is not part of the treasurer's pool of what the treasurer's office accounts for. And the previous finding that I was just speaking to, we, of course, are on track of speeding up that process. What this finding is dealing with is there's a number of accounts, some vernacular say petty cash, they're not really petty cash, but these are accounts that we call off ledger. And so many of the departments across the county, whether it be the sheriff's office, whether it be the courts, they have these accounts that they're keeping track of. That treasurer, only thing that treasurer has the ability to do is be able to open those accounts, close those accounts, provide statements, but the reconciliation of those accounts do rest with those departments. The challenge is in M&B, we then at the end of the year, through treasurer's office, we take all of those reconciliations for these accounts. And then the challenge is we're not able to really do a decent job of supporting the reconciliation. And that's what Plant brought to our attention. So we collaborated just recently, the treasurer's office and our office, to reach out to these departments. And we've pinpointed in the communication some of the things that we need to get from them, so that as we still have a few months left between now and September, it's our hope that we will collectively be able to have a good handle on what's flowing through these accounts. And then when Plant comes out to do the audit for the 23 fiscal year, we'll be able to do a better job in supporting what the balances are in these accounts. I'm not sure if you want to add anything, Soraya, in terms of this off ledger discussion.
The two pieces of that contribute to what we're trying to address with this finding is Plant has the expectation that the year-end journal entries that are provided by M&B are going to be done more frequently. And so I believe that M&B needs to coordinate with the auditors to confirm, because the process has been arranged so that there's a end of year posting, but in trying to implement a interval of postings, then to make sure that it doesn't compound or overpost the amounts that are to be adjusted for the general ledger. The second part related to receiving that information, the departments, for the most part, have submitted their information correctly and timely. It's basically how that information is summarized and provided to the auditors. So before we provide that information, that we have committed to proofing that before submitted to the auditors, so that there is the proper representation of those off ledger accounts.
Thank you. Commissioner Kling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said this is similar to the last one. The last one you referenced, Gatsby 84. Does Gatsby 84 come into play on this one too?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, but the question that I want to ask here is, when there are these rulings, Gatsby, whatever, 76, 84, 190 is going to be coming at some point. It changes you operationally in what you have to do?
So again, once again, Commissioner, some of them, yes, like give an example, GSB 87 last year about leases. I mean, it changed the landscape, how we record the leases even. So it just, we have to go back and, county has, I would say, 200 buildings.
Yeah.
Some of them are leases and some of them are not. Most of them, we started earlier with the resources. And all we come to know at some point, particularly drains, right? Drains are a component. You need some of them, when we do this construction work, it's a lease, not lease, and we just have to go back to the state and some of the find out information too. So yes, some of them are challenging, definite challenging. So again, this year there are two coming. One of the subscription-based technology that we started working with the Oracle partially, is a lease or not lease or something. So again, yes.
Well, I
it
noticed,
does make a big difference, yes.
Yeah, I noticed the treasurer's office was shaking their heads when we say it's just change you operationally. What I'm suggesting, perhaps, Mr. Chair, this isn't the first time it's come up when Gatsby comes out with their proclamations. And I've seen this in audits going back years, right? It's like, oh, this new system and trying to. What I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, is if we should get briefed when a new Gatsby directive, whatever you call them, comes out, and instead of finding out at the end of the year with our reports, that this committee find out ahead of time, this Gatsby thing that's coming out now, this is going to take a lot of resources to meet, just so that the committee is aware early on what the effect is here and what this means for, and again, going back to having all these separate elected and everybody with their own bookkeeping, and trying to bring that together. So I would suggest perhaps that might be a thing to do, is to get an explanation of the Gatsby as it comes out and what the effect is going to be on our people for actually complying.
Ms. Cora?
You spoke with Mindy. She handles our budget sensitive report, and that's something we will look at as far as included it in our budget sensitive each year, what upcoming GASBs are and what effect may have.
Thank you. Please proceed.
The next three are primarily the treasurer's office. The first one is the county did not have procedures in place to ensure that the balances within the cash receipts fund were properly reconciled at year end. And the recommendation is the county should develop a process to ensure the balances within cash receipts fund are reconciled timely and accurately.
Somebody from the treasurer's office like to respond.
Sure. So I think they kind of go together. And again, we could go back to GASB 84 on this one. This was a new process or review process in the audit from last year, I think was the first year. So our office, as you know, we've experienced significant turnover in the finance leadership over the past 5 years, and that led to a huge knowledge gap. And when GASB 84 was implemented last year, the review uncovered a lot of historical inaccuracies in our reporting. And so what we have done with Melissa coming on board last year, we have embarked on a complete review of what we call our mapping system. And that's where we take in accounting, the funds are accounted for in our PTA system, and then they are mapped to separate accounts through the JD Edwards. And we found that there had been errors going back for, I want to say, almost a decade.
Well, 6 years.
6 years, okay. So 6 years. So we're correcting those. We've gone through, they're reviewing every mapping entry, making the corrections in the mapping. And that's phase 1, and they're still in that process right now.
Yes.
You want to speak any more on that, or?
Sure. Our mapping process it's very detailed. It takes a lot of time. You have to consider, government source foresighted entries. So it takes a lot of time to get through the whole mapping of all of our accounts. As you know, we have a ton of accounts. So please be patient. We're focused on our liability account 703 fund and also our 999 fund, cash receipts fund.
So that's step one. And then our next step will be a review of all of the accounts because we've
Mhm.
identified obsolete accounts,
Yeah.
duplicate accounts.
Mhm.
So we're going to go through all of those accounts and eliminate the ones that are unnecessary, and that should make our mapping process easier and more accurate in the future, but it is going to take some time.
Yeah.
And we are addressing the errors as they come about this year, so hopefully this will not be a significant finding in this year's audit, but it is going to take us some time
Mhm.
to correct it. We have gone back to the person who really was responsible for this 6 or 7 years ago, and he's helping us out significantly.
Mhm.
And that was a problem. When we lost him, we lost all of the knowledge that went along with the mapping process, but he has come back and he's helping us voluntarily, I would
Yes,
say.
Yes.
And that's helping us out a lot. So I think that addresses 9 and 10.
Thank you. Ms. Cora?
That 6 and 9 addressed? Because number 9 is the delinquent tax receivable balances and the interest revenue accounts were properly stated that.
Doesn't that relate to mapping as well?
Yeah.
That's also
Okay,
related to
that's part of the
mapping. Yeah.
mapping. Then number 10, the undistributed property tax, same thing. So that addresses all the treasures, 6, 9, and 10.
Okay.
So I think we're complete with the treasurer's office. Thank you for attending. We appreciate
you.
all
Thank
of your
you.
support. The next one is the sheriff's office. I believe we have representatives from the sheriff's office here. You just could introduce yourselves.
Morning, Benita Terry, Director of Administration, Sheriff's Office.
Welcome.
I'm Jackie Safransky with the Sheriff's Finance Unit.
Welcome. Please.
Inmate property bank accounts were reconciled to the inmate cash balances for the jail management system. And the recommendations, the county should develop a process to ensure that the inmate property bank account is reconciled to the jail management system. The cash reconciling items are reviewed for proper exchange into the state. If I could just add, this finding also was part of our jail inmate audit we did last year, and our audit team led by Mindy has been working with the sheriff's office to go through all the recommendations that were in that report, and I believe we'll probably have it at the next meeting. And I believe all the recommendations have primarily been implemented or in process, so it kind of ties into this one too. But I don't know if they wanted to add any additional to. Go ahead.
We've been under this audit with the Auditor General for going on 4 years. And there have been significant overhauls that we have made with our cash handling. Not in my opinion that it was off the rails or anything, because we've never had any cash missing, but things that just strengthen what we do. So we have made a lot of significant changes. There are still some that we're working on getting strengthened. The two that are mentioned here with the bank and the JMS reconciliations are a little bit longer because there are a lot of elements in JMS with the different transactions going on with inmate accounts that have to be considered. We want to be able to create a comprehensive reconciliation that reconciles JMS and the bank account and is satisfactory to auditors and M&B and the treasurer's office. So that's what our goal is, and we are working to strive to get that. The other part is about as cheating to the state. We have identified all the escheatment eligible records. We are just waiting for M&B to issue the escheatment policy countywide. We don't want to go counter to what the county is doing. We want to be in concert with that. So as soon as that escheatment policy is ready and we can go ahead and put it in practice, that money, which is currently sitting in our inmate trust bank account, has already been identified. All we have to do is report it and move it to the state.
M&B would like to say anything?
Yes, Commissioner, as earlier I indicated, we are working with the Corp Council to finalize our achievement policy. But I just want to add in this one, I think the issue what auditors are asking, and I think Jackie, you had mentioned that the philosophy is jail inmate system is not made for a financial record.
That's
So
correct.
that's what the reconciliation auditors are asking, that banks, each and every record should tie to the jail management system. And I think we have a philosophical difference here because owners saying that that's not what the jail management system is made for. But overall reconciliation needs to be performed in timely, yes. So that is the finding is correct. But as far as reconciliation with the jail management system, I don't know, would you agree with that?
Not to sound disparaging to the Plant Moran auditors, but they never came out to see JMS in person. I don't think they have a full understanding of what JMS looks like without seeing it and how it operates. And they're kind of taking, in my opinion, an arbitrary view of like, oh, you should just be able to reconcile this. Why aren't you doing it? As I said, there's a lot of factors and elements that go into each inmate's account and their financial activities, because there's something going on with their accounts on a daily basis. So in order to capture all that in a reconciliation that's going to be comprehensive and satisfactory to everyone is taking us a little bit of time to create.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take care internally. How about that? Process wise.
Thank you. And then I can, this is all about learning anyway and sunshine in the process. So I can talk to external auditors and, you know, somewhere in there, we can find common ground and all row together. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And
Ms.
like
Cora?
you said earlier, Minnie and her team has been working very closely with Mr. Fransky and Ms. Terry since she's taken her new role, and I think they made great strides.
Yes. Thank you. So thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Cora.
Now we're moving on to the grant funded programs. So we could have Shantika and her team could join us at the table. I'm not sure who she needs to have at the table, but I'll leave that to her.
Good morning, everyone. Shantika Ballard, Grants Director for Wayne County.
Welcome.
If it is okay with commissioners, as we go through the findings, we'll just have the appropriate party join me for just their section.
The first one is the WIC program. And as she's joining us, I'll just read the condition and recommendation.
We have-
Controls in place were not adequate to ensure the county maintain responsibility for compliance with eligibility determinations are made by the contractor. And the recommendations the county implement a process by which a county representative performs a review of the contract eligibility determinations.
Okay, so with this finding, we, for a lot of our programs, including WIC, have subrecipients. And we are delegating certain tasks and roles of operating the program to those subrecipients. In this case, Plant has found that there is a lack of review of the eligibility determinations. So what management is looking to do is to implement a oversight process where someone from county representation will review the eligibility. Again, that's going to be more of spot checks. We won't have a dedicated FTE to review every, singular determination that is made. That would be counterproductive to why we are bringing on assistance to operate the program. So is there an opportunity that there may be a one-off where there's a determination that the auditors disagreed with? I think that possibility may remain, but for the most part, if we're looking at scale and scope of the program, there were not many instances where the eligibility was called into question. And with having that review and checking to make sure that they are at least applying the methodology as we intend it to be applied, I think that would be a reasonable control, but I'll turn it over to Dr. Schiff if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Sure. Thank you for that overview. This is
You hit your button.
to our WIC program, which has very specific certification eligibility requirements that we implement through our county services, and we expect our subrecipients to follow as well. There has been no concern that they do follow these eligibility policies and procedures. However, there was a need to implement controls on our end that we are providing oversight and reviewing that they're doing that in accordance with our WIC state and federal policies. The last few years during the pandemic, WIC has been primarily delivered through remote services as well. And so that's part of the reason why in this audit year, there wasn't sufficient evidence of our overview since these services were provided primarily remotely.
Please proceed, Ms. Core.
We're moving on to the health centers. The county has a sliding fee discount policy that is based on income and family size and schedule in place. However, it was not followed for all patients during the year. Where its recommendation that a process be implemented to ensure the sliding discount provided to the patients reviewed with the electronic health record system for inconsistency with the patient provided support for the discount.
So this is similar to the last finding. The county has a co-applicant relationship with the health center. So for the FQHC, there's a representative on that side that reviews the income requirements and applies a discount based off of income for the recipients. So what the auditors are suggesting is that we have, again, someone from county side reviewing the application of that discount. If there's anything else you'd like to add?
Good morning. My name is Khalif Morse. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Wayne County Healthy Communities. We are going through a process with eClinicalWorks, which is the health record that we use, to ensure that the model used to do the sliding fee discount is accurate and properly in tuned. The second piece is we are retraining all of our front desk staff who implement the sliding fee scale calculation to make sure that their calculations and the processes are accurate. And we look forward to not having any findings like this next year.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleen, this question or comment?
Yeah, question. So like the other one, this is the people we contract with, or like with Healthy Communities or with WIC, that are determining eligibilities and that kind of stuff. And the auditors are saying that MMB also needs to have a role in that and double checking the information we're getting from our contractors.
So not MMB specifically, but the program operators. So for WIC is housed within public health of HHVS, and the health center cluster is within clinical services of HHVS. So the operating team would be reviewing what the contractor in this case, the co-applicant is producing.
Yeah,
And then
it gets
also
into
kind
some
of a-
language here, but so you will have to put a little more time to this through your office, right?
Correct, yes.
Do you have the resources to do that?
Not currently.
Okay. Yeah, and that's always an issue that comes up with this, because the double check is important throughout government, right? So Healthy Communities, you might come up with the new system that really nails it, but it still needs the oversight in this building to say, yeah, right? They have a new system and it works and it's great and that kind of thing. Okay, resources, Mr. Chair, we keep coming up against that.
We get it, Ms. Cora?
The next one's the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The county did not have adequate controls in place to ensure that payments to the beneficiaries were calculated correctly. In Plant Moran's recommendations, the county review its controls specific to the calculation of benefits to ensure that inputs used in the calculation are supported by adequate documentation. They also recommend the county assess whether the reviewer should be required to recalculate the benefit payment. And if I could just add, our office has begun a performance engagement over the rental assistance program, so we will be taking a deeper dive into this program.
Okay, so with this program, the county did contract Guidehouse in order to operate the program. We are no longer under that engagement, are we, for ERAP? So we will be reviewing, as the auditor suggested, and we did ask after the audit was performed for a review of all of the determinations. So we believe we do have a handle on how many calculations may have been outside of the guidelines that we will be working to correct.
And could your guest introduce himself to the committee for the record?
Yes.
And then Commissioner Clark Coleman had a question or
Yeah,
comment.
so you're reviewing the ones to see if there were some that were outside of the requirements. Were those people refused services?
No, they weren't refused services. So the issue with the calculation is that they may have received a greater benefit than what they were eligible for.
Oh, I see. So they would have received more rather
Correct.
than excluded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
Good morning, everybody. Hassan
morning.
Sheikh, Director of Economic Development. Just if I could add to this, our team, we've inherited this program at the tail end of the program. We're working diligently to make sure that we're working through and going through the findings, working with Shantika and her team, as well as others to correct and rectify any areas that may need that, and take a hard-nosed look at what was going on in the program. As we are going to be doing that, we hopefully next year, with any other programs that come our way, we won't be in front of you all, as we hope to instill the proper processes moving forward in programs.
Thank you. Commissioner Coleman?
So what is the expiration date of the program? Is there a time when it's going to expire, or?
So the program itself, in terms of bringing on new individuals for the program is already passed. So the program now, it's about just taking care of the last amount of folks that were awarded the dollars and going through that aspect. But the program itself has, in terms of taking on new applicants.
The expiration date has already.
Yes, in regards to that, in regards to taking on new applications, yes.
And you don't think that it will be renewed at any time?
So this was a grant funding that was provided us to by the feds, right? And it was a certain amount of money. Those monies have been allocated. Yep.
Okay, all right, that's it.
Okay, Ms. Cor, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kleen.
And the Auditor General says they're going to be looking at the ERAP in a separate report, so I won't go too far in this water. I want to go further, but we'll wait for that report. But these things at all levels of government, the feds throws money at you and says, do this. So this was part of what kind of a grant from the feds?
So this was a part of the pandemic relief.
Yeah, right. And so they give you money and they give you a timeline. From the time we got how much time did we have to get a program set? Because we have to set it up then, right? They give you a big bucket of cash and they say disperse this, but we have to set up the program. That's why we went and got Guidehouse, right?
Correct.
So that's more fingers in the pie. How much time did we have from the time we got the money, from the time we were told we were getting the money to set this up to get it out there?
So this was a build the plane while you were flying effort. We received the funding. I believe we programmed within about 90 days. While we were programming, all of the requirements for the program had not been finalized.
Yeah.
So there were iterations of programming.
And this
going
is
back and
not
making
unusual
corrections.
with these kind of grants, right? Where they give you kind of on short notice.
Not for emergency response.
Yeah.
Typically, programs aren't set up this way.
Yeah.
But when it's emergency response, this is the nature.
Because it's,
And you saw that.
because
a lot
then
with
we
a
have
lot
to
of
run the
officers.
guide house and say, hey, you've done this before, set aside. So I'll get into it more, but I'm also reflecting like on the state unemployment insurance, right? They threw a lot of money at them to get it set up and they rushed to get a system set up. And then you open it up to the public and then that's when you find out, oh no, right? And the media comes down on everybody. And so I'll explore this a little bit more when we get the report, but my personal observation is that we kind of get jammed up when they drop a large check on us and say, disperse this, and these are all the rules. And by the way, get it done in 90 days. So I'll leave it for now.
Of course,
But-
we'd rather have the funds. Even
Well, I would
though
say
we're
so.
at a disadvantage, we still need.
I'm not
those funds
disagreeing with
to
We
that,
go
got a
those
committee
emergencies.
meeting going here, so.
Okay.
but it
One at
does
a time.
jam us up.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Coral.
I could just add, and we're hoping with our engagement that we're doing any recommendations we have can be taken and used in other programs whenever we were to get some funds. So we're hoping we can provide value that way.
Absolutely.
Our last one is the home program and child support enforcement. Controls in place are not adequate to ensure compliance with the 2 CFR 2000 Appendix B submission requirements for the county's self-insuring cost allocation process and the annual chargeback plan. The plan Moran's recommendation was the county review 2 CFR 200, include the applicable appendixes, including the applicable appendixes to assess the submission documentation requirements for all cost allocation methodologies. Additionally, they recommend the county document its methodology for allocating self-insurance costs and annual chargeback costs across the various departments, including formalizing its documentation surrounding procedures and controls, and that the county implement a process for ensuring these plans are submitted to the federal council agency for approval.
So this particular finding will be responded to within administration. So this is about the allocations and the methodologies that we use to allocate funding. The county has an annual cost allocation plan. That's the Maximus plan that we have produced that shows what chargebacks we are allowed to hit the federal awards with for our central service costs, but we have other allocations such as fringe benefits and such. Because we crossed over a certain threshold of funding, now all of our allocations will need to be sent off for approval by our cognizant agency and not just that annual cost allocation plan. So M&B will ensure that all those methodologies are sent to the appropriate agency.
Thank you. Ms. Cora?
Well, just wrapping up.
Okay, sure.
I just like to, this engagement, the financial audit was completed timely this year. As we know, last year we weren't timely, but it was timely this year. And I think that goes credited to all the departments and elected officials for all the efforts they put in with the auditors, working through everything they need to provide all the proper support. Treasurer's office, I know, was involved heavily in this, but I think great congratulations need to be given to Yogesh Kasani, Chief Deputy Financial Officer, Michael Bridges and Sean Tika, because I think they were the spirit behind making sure everything was completed timely work, a lot of late nights, a lot of meetings. I know we had Mark Abel was part of our team too.
I won't hold it against you.
Yeah, working we had almost weekly meetings. And I think it's just, they should be commended for what they did to get it done on such a timely basis and all the efforts with the short staff that they had. I think they just need to be commended for that.
On a serious note, thank you, thank your staff, and thank the departments for all their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we get a motion to receive and file? I'm sorry, Ms. Cora?
I'm sorry, just one more thing too. Last year, we had a task force that worked on all the findings that were in our, we will continue with our task force this year.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to receive and file?
You got a motion.
You got a second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Can I get support?
That's what a second is.
Right.
You,
I think.
you got 2 seconds. So
We got one.
I'm just kidding. All those in favor, all those in favor under Gatsby 85, all those in favor, please. Can I say aye?
I'll say aye.
I don't have I just have to, I'm doing it verbally. Oh, it's up there behind me. Okay. All right. Wow, it's the first time I've seen this. So ayes have it. Next item, Madam Clerk.
F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
There are none. Next item.
Public comments.
Is there anybody from the public like to comment? Anybody from the public like to comment? Darcel, you got anything? Anybody from the public like to comment? Okay, next item, Madam Clerk.
Adjournment.
Can I get a motion? It's been moved and supported. I'm looking on, okay. And the ayes have